After the Owens left Plas Wilmot, they came here to the river-encircled town of Shrewsbury. Many of Wilfred's favourites can be seen from this vantage point: the statue of Hercules, St Julian's the Evangelical Church, and Hormond Hill with its nearby ruined abbey.
No mockeries now for them, no prayers nor bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells, and bugles calling for them from sad shires.
The suburb of Cherry Orchard to the east of the town was still under construction when Tom and Susan Owen and their 2 children came here in 1897. The name of their street was chosen by the experimental novelist Samuel Butler in honour of his father, Canon Thomas Butler. The name of their house they chose for themselves. Wilfred's brother Harold was born here in the September of that year, and they stayed on until 1900 when Tom became station master at Woodside in Birkenhead. When they returned in 1907, they lived on Underdale Road, close to the River Severn, at number 1 Cleveland Place. A boy who lived opposite remembered seeing Wilfred working late into the night on his books in the unheated and uncurtained upper room. In 1910 they moved to the most famous of the Owen houses on Monkmmor Road. These 4 houses were built by Arthur Knight between 1904 and 1907. In 1910, Knight was living in the house on the right, which he called Ballarat, after a town in Australia where he had lived. Tom Owen was obviously impressed with these colonialist associations, and when the family moved here, he named the house on the left Mayhem, after a district in Bombay which he had known. Wilfred's window looked out onto a racecourse and a former showground with the picturesque Hormond Hill in the background. When houses were built opposite, he compared them to a rude man who stands between you and a beautiful view. It was here that he kept his bookshelf and his locked cupboard with its secret writings. It was here that he sent literally hundreds of letters home to his mother, and it was here that the news came on Armistice Day that he had been killed in action. Earlier, he had been making plans for his next leave, early in February 1919. He and his mother walked to the top of Hormond, and while she was resting at the top, he would run round the Wrekin to warm his feet. Wildcop is the steepest of Shrewsbury's shopping streets. Wilfred and his mother Susan used to climb it to reach St Julian's Church at the top. Susan always found it rather a trial, and on one occasion Wilfred dreamt that he was trying to impel her up the hill, but moving only a short distance after much effort. He thought this meant he had a weak heart. This alleyway led to the Wildcop School, where Wilfred had his first job. Wilfred was a pupil teacher here at the Shrewsbury Borough Technical School from 1907 to 1911. The school stood in this yard. Nothing now remains except the cookery department, which has recently been converted into a house. Old Shrewsbury School is now the town's library. The original buildings date from around 1600. Although they were born centuries apart, both Sir Philip Sidney and Charles Darwin were educated here. Wilfred was a keen admirer of Darwin's work, but it was Roman archaeology which brought him here. In 1907, the building was the town's museum and library, and after cycling to the Roman site of Racecourse to collect fragments of pottery from the fields, he would come here to gaze at artefacts collected during formal excavations. Tom Owen worked at Shrewsbury's beautiful Victorian railway station from 1884 when he returned from India, and except for 7 years in Birkenhead, he continued to work here until after Wilfred's death. Tom started as a junior clerk and gradually worked his way up to assistant line superintendent. Wilfred's cousins, Gordon and Leslie Gumston from Reading, were keen railway enthusiasts, and the 3 boys sometimes used to come here train spotting. When he was in Bordeaux in 1913, Wilfred wrote a comedy poem about this statue. Hercules was depicted as dying of boredom from living so long in the town. Later, at Craig Lockhart in Edinburgh, Wilfred was writing another poem about Hercules when he met Siegfried Sassoon. From then on, he would write mainly about war. A subject had found its poet.
Will they return to beatings of great bells, in wild train loads? A few, too few for drums and yells. We'll walk back silent to the village wells, up half-known roads.